The Smirk in the Wolf's Lair. March 22nd, 1945. Deep inside the reinforced bunkers of the Führer Hauptquartier Wolfschanze, East Prussia. The air is thick with cigarette smoke and the low hum of ventilation fans struggling against the damp chill. Adolf Hitler leans over the situation map table, his eyes narrowed, a faint smile creeping across his face as an aide slides a reconnaissance photograph toward him. There they are, rows of American M4 Sherman tanks captured intact in a forested clearing near Viersen, just west of the Rhine. Dozens of them abandoned in hasty retreat, turrets slewed, tracks frozen in mud. Prime prizes, proof that the Americans are cracking, overextended, leaving their precious armor behind for the taking. You can almost hear the satisfaction in his voice as he mutters to General Alfred Jodl beside him. See, the Americans are amateurs. They throw their tanks forward recklessly, and now they flee, gifting us their machines. The smile widens, just for a moment, a rare flicker of triumph in these darkening days. Reports flood in from the front. Luftwaffe pilots confirm a massive buildup opposite Viersen. Radio intercepts chatter about the U.S. 30th and 79th Infantry Divisions massing for a crossing. Sonic reconnaissance picks up the unmistakable rumble of armored columns, engines idling, tracks clanking through the night. Hitler nods approvingly. Reinforcements are shifted north. Precious panzer reserves, artillery batteries, veteran infantry corps, all converging to crush what looks like the main American thrust across the Rhine. But something nags at the edges of the intelligence summaries. A forward patrol reports approaching one of those captured Shermans for closer inspection. A sergeant climbs atop the hull, expecting cold steel under his boots. Instead, a soft give, like stepping on a child's balloon. He presses harder, the turret sags, a hiss escapes, faint at first, then louder. The entire 32-ton beast deflates before his eyes, collapsing into a puddle of olive-drab rubber. The sergeant's stunned radio call crackles back to headquarters. My God, they're fakes, all of them, inflatable dummies. Back in the wolf's lair, the smile vanishes. What had looked like American panic was a meticulously staged illusion, and the real blow is about to fall 10 miles to the north, where the Ninth Army is already crossing the Rhine with almost no opposition. How did a handful of American artists, actors, and soundmen pull off the greatest bluff of the war? And whose idea was it to fight the Wehrmacht with hot air? Early 1943. A nondescript insurance building in Lower Manhattan, New York City. The elevators smell of coffee and cigarette ash as a young captain named Ralph Ingersoll steps out onto a secure floor guarded by MPs. Inside, artists in paint-splattered smocks share drafting tables with Army intelligence officers. Sculptors argue with radio engineers. A Broadway set designer sketches a 90-foot-long inflatable tank on butcher paper, while a lieutenant from Fort Meade times the playback speed of recorded artillery barrages. This is the birthplace of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, the Ghost Army. Ingersoll, fresh from observing British deception units in North Africa, pitches the concept straight to General Omar Bradley's staff. Create an entire phantom army capable of impersonating real divisions. Not just camouflage, full sensory deception, sight, sound, radio chatter, even the smell of hot engines if they can manage it. The brass laughs at first. 1,000 men pretending to be 30,000 with rubber tanks and Hollywood tricks? But the numbers are brutal. Every feint that draws German fire away from a real assault saves American lives by the thousands. Bradley listens. He remembers the bloodbath at Omaha Beach still months away. He signs the order. Recruitment begins in secret.
The army scours art schools, ad agencies, and theatre districts. They pull in men like fashion designer Bill Blass, photographer Art Kane, painter Ellsworth Kelly, future legends who can draw a perfect Sherman turret freehand at 3 a.m. under blackout conditions. They get actors who can mimic Midwestern drawls for fake radio traffic, sound engineers from Paramount and MGM who recorded King Kong's roars, a guy whose day job is building parade floats in New Jersey. By spring 1944, the Ghost Army assembles at Camp Forest, Tennessee for training. You can picture the scene: a humid night, cicadas screaming, as soldiers in fatigues wrestle a 93-pound rubber Sherman out of a duffel bag. A compressor coughs to life. Slowly, impossibly, the flaccid heap inflates, tracks, bogey wheels, 75mm gun, until it stands 11 feet tall, indistinguishable from the real thing at 200 yards. They practice spoof radio, hundreds of scripted transmissions imitating the sloppy habits of actual armored units. Operators deliberately mispronounce call signs, gripe about chow, reference officers by nickname, just like GIs do. Enough authentic sloppiness to convince German intercept teams they're listening to the real 2nd Armored Division. Then come the sonic trucks, half-tracks mounted with massive speakers capable of blasting the recorded roar of a tank column up to 15 miles away. Tested at night, the sound rolls across valleys like thunder, convincing sentries that hell is moving toward them. By June 1944, the Ghost Army ships out to England, still classified so deeply that even most generals don't know they exist. Their first mission is coming, and it will be the largest deception ever attempted on the Western Front. But could a unit of painters and playwrights really fool the battle-hardened eyes of the Wehrmacht? And what happens when the Germans decide to send a panzer division to investigate the noise?
Baptism by Fire. Operation Elephant. July 1944. A muddy hedgerow field near Camberley, England. Rain lashes down as the men of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops inflate their first full tank battalion under blackout conditions. Compressors whine, rubber Shermans rise like ghosts in the downpour. Soldiers in slickers scurry between them, attaching fake antenna whips, stenciling bumper numbers with authentic divisional markings. By dawn, 48 Phantom tanks sit in perfect formation, ready for inspection by skeptical British generals testing the deception. The verdict? From the air, indistinguishable. From 500 yards on the ground, convincing enough to fool. Now the real test awaits across the Channel. August 1944. 5 weeks after D-Day. The Ghost Army lands at Omaha Beach under cover of darkness, still carrying the lingering stench of cordite and death. Their orders? Operation Elephant. The feint to convince the Germans that General George Patton's freshly activated 3rd Army is massing near Brest instead of racing east toward Paris. You can feel the tension as Captain Reb's deception platoon rolls into position along the Douve River. Night falls. Sonic trucks park in orchards, speakers angled toward German lines. At precisely 2,200 hours, the recorded roar begins. Hundreds of tanks revving, tracks grinding, half-tracks clanking, played on a 30-minute loop. Across the lines, German sentries stiffen. Outposts report a massive armored buildup. Field Marshal Gunther von Klug diverts an entire panzer brigade west to counter the threat. Meanwhile, 15 miles away, the real Patton barrels through open countryside with almost no resistance. But the Ghost Army pays a price for authenticity. Soldiers must act the part fully, driving jeeps with 2nd Armored Division markings into French villages, letting careless GIs brag in cafes about joining Patton soon. Special agents in civilian clothes pose as locals, dropping hints to known collaborators. One night, a real German patrol slips through the lines and stumbles into the dummy tank park. Flashlights sweep across rubber hulls.
A nervous private fires a flare. The Germans hesitate, just long enough for the ghosts to scatter into the woods. When the patrol advances, they find only empty positions and deflated decoys hastily packed away. The deception holds. Brest falls later than planned, but the larger prize, Paris, is liberated ahead of schedule. Back at headquarters, intelligence officers tally the results. 1 panzer brigade, 2 infantry divisions, and dozens of artillery batteries tied down by 1,100 men armed with hot air and loudspeakers. The Ghost Army has passed its baptism. But the Rhine is still months away, and the Germans are growing wary. Could the same tricks work against Hitler's most elite formations on the Siegfried Line? And what happens when the enemy decides to call the bluff with a full-scale counterattack?
The Grand Illusion, Operation Viersen. March 21st, 1945. A fog-shrouded forest clearing west of the Rhine, near the town of Viersen. The night air carries the sharp bite of pine and wet earth as compressors hiss in the darkness. One by one, the rubber Shermans rise, over 80 of them, flanked by inflatable M10 tank destroyers and a forest of dummy artillery pieces. Soldiers from the 23rd 603rd Engineer Camouflage Battalion work fast, staking pneumatic decoys into position, scattering fake tank tracks with improvised drags, even dumping gasoline-soaked rags near exhaust vents to create the acrid smell of real engines. By dawn, the Phantom 30th and 79th Infantry Divisions stretch across 8 miles of front, complete with laundry lines strung between trees, jeeps sporting the correct divisional insignia, and MPs directing non-existent traffic at crossroads. Sonic companies position their half-tracks in ravines. At dusk, the speakers come alive. The deep growl of Maybach engines, the screech of tracks on pavement, the shouted orders of sergeants marshalling columns. The sound rolls eastward, straight toward the Siegfried Line. On the radio nets, operators from the signal company Deception pound out traffic, imitating 2 full divisions preparing to force a Rhine crossing. Messages fly in clear bursts, deliberately careless. Hellcat Battalion moving up to grid 4472. Watch for mud on that road. Tell the old man we'll be ready by 2200. German listening posts swallow it whole. Reconnaissance aircraft report massive concentrations opposite Viersen. Field Marshal Walter Model, commanding Army Group B, shifts reserves north. Elements of the 116th Panzer Division, the 15th Panzer Grenadier, heavy artillery from the 388th Volks Artillery Corps, all racing to seal what looks like the main Allied thrust. 10 miles south, near Rheinberg, the real U.S. 9th Army under General William Simpson prepares to cross with almost no opposition. The riverbanks are eerily quiet. German guns that should be pounding the bridges are pointed the wrong way. You can almost feel the exhaustion in the Ghost Army's bivouacs. These men have been awake for 72 hours straight, patching bullet holes in rubber tanks from stray shell fragments, moving the entire display every few nights to avoid detection. One artist, Corporal Jack Macy, sketches quick portraits of his buddies between shifts, faces gaunt, eyes hollow, but grinning at the absurdity of it all. Then comes the moment that reaches Hitler himself. A German forward observer, peering through binoculars, spots the abandoned American tanks in a clearing after a supposed retreat. Photographs are rushed to the Wolf's Lair. The Führer smiles. But on the ground, a reconnaissance patrol creeps forward under cover of darkness. A lieutenant touches a Sherman turret and feels it yield like a balloon. Another slashes with a bayonet. Air rushes out with a pathetic wheeze. The truth explodes up the chain of command. The reserves are too late. By March 24th, 9th Army has 9 bridges across the Rhine and bridgeheads miles deep. German counterattacks slam into empty forests and deflated decoys. The Ghost Army's greatest performance has just diverted an entire corps and opened the door to the Ruhr. But the war isn't over.
One final deception awaits, the largest of them all. And this time, the ghosts will have to impersonate an army twice their fake size, while under direct enemy observation.
The last performance, Operation Luxembourg, April 1945, the Moselle River Valley, Luxembourg. Spring mud clings to everything as the men of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops set up what will be their 21st and final deception of the war. This time, the stakes are staggering. The Ghost Army must impersonate not one, not two, but portions of 3 full U.S. Corps. The 15th Corps, Apache's 7th Army, and elements of the 20th Corps, totaling over 60,000 men and 2 armored divisions. All with the same 1,100 ghosts, their dwindling stock of rubber tanks, and 4 battered Sonic companies. The objective? Convince the battered remnants of German Army Group G that Patton's Third Army is swinging south for a massive double envelopment across the Moselle, when in reality, the real blow is falling far to the north as the Allies race toward the Elbe. You can picture the exhaustion etched into every face. These men have not had a full night's sleep in weeks. Rubber tanks are patched with tire repair kits and duct tape. Compressors cough and sputter, yet they work through the nights, inflating hundreds of decoys along a 30-mile front under intermittent German artillery fire. Sonic trucks broadcast the thunder of phantom bridges being built, recorded hammers on pontoons, the splash of boats, shouted engineer commands. Radio operators fill the airwaves with traffic for divisions that exist only on paper. MPs in borrowed patches wave fake convoys through villages at dusk, headlights blazing for German spotters to see. To sell the illusion completely, small teams venture into no man's land at night, planting fake minefield markers and laying strips of burlap tank tracks that lead straight toward German strongpoints. One squad even rigs dummy soldiers, inflatable GIs with rifles, propped up in foxholes, helmets tilted just so. Across the river, German commanders take the bait. General Erich Brandenberger shifts his last mobile reserves south, thinning the line opposite the real Allied advance. Intelligence reports confirm it. The enemy is reacting exactly as planned. Then, on April 12, word crackles over the command net. President Roosevelt is dead. The news hits the ghosts like a body blow. Some men weep openly beside half-inflated Shermans. Others simply stare at the horizon. The war suddenly feels both endless and unbearably close to its end. But the mission continues. For 4 more days, they hold the line of deception, drawing scattered artillery barrages onto empty fields and rubber phantoms. Shells burst harmlessly around inflatable tanks that sag and leak but never burn. By April 18th, the real Allied armies have punched deep into Germany. The Ghost Army's work is done. Orders come down. Deflate everything, pack the trucks, move east. As the last rubber Sherman collapses with a weary sigh, Fred Fox, veteran of every operation, lights a cigarette and watches the pile of olive drab fabric shrink to nothing. 21 major deceptions. Hundreds of thousands of German troops and guns shifted at critical moments. Entire battles decided by illusion. Years later, General Omar Bradley will quietly state that the 1,100 men of the 23rd saved the lives of perhaps 30,000 American soldiers by drawing enemy fire to ghosts. The war ends 3 weeks later. The Ghost Army is disbanded in Germany, its records sealed for decades. The men go home, artists, actors, designers, and almost none of them ever speak of what they did. Rubber tanks are bulldozed into scrap heaps. Sonic recordings are erased. The greatest deception unit in history simply vanishes. Until, slowly, the story begins to emerge. A secret army that never fired a shot in anger, yet helped win the war.